journal entries, and she and her good friends, one of the Baxter girls, Isabella, going to the fun fair in Germany. And yeah, that's where it starts. 29 June 1812. Isabella's ankle has still not healed completely. For a time, there was some doubt about whether she would be able to go to the fair in 5. Is it 5? 5 and 5. But she complained so persistently, sweetly and dramatically, that Mr. Baxter took another good look at her ankle, told Grace to bandage it as firmly as possible, and made Isabella promise that she would sit down often and not come home too late. All of us went, the whole family, in 2 carriages, and Isabella and I were to return with Johnny at the end of the day. Johnny is the little brother. We sat, beaming, side by side, she and I. We leaned out of the window to see how far we still had to go. Eventually the carriage could go no further because there were too many vehicles on the road. So we walked the last part of the way, Isabella doing her best to disguise her slight limp. I had never experienced anything similar before, and I realized how much I was longing for this. It had not belonged to my world until then. Unfamiliar events and mysterious scenes were calling, and my heart ran out happily within me. Screaming children, young men with bottles of beer, elegantly attired ladies, all mingling together. Johnny jumped up and down and around us. Robert tried to hold his hand so he would not get lost, but Johnny was in too high spirits. Robert grinned at me. He was about to say something to me, but Isabella pulled me along into the crowd, away from the other Baxters, as well as the many stalls selling sweets, drinks, and other wares, such as scarves, hats, parasols, jewelry, and paintings. There was a row of tents with people standing outside, trying to lure passers-by to enter. Bearded women, dwarfs, and fortune tellers awaited us, along with talking birds, a man who put his head inside a tiger's mouth, a young woman with 2 faces, and a cat circus. What is all of this? I called out happily to Isabella. She laughed. It was such a fine, uninhibited laugh. I had rarely seen her like that before. Would you like to see some strange sights? She asked. I looked around. It would be hard not to see strange sights here. I nodded. Come on. She pulled me with her to a big red tent at the end of the field with the word Curiositatis painted on the wooden sign by the entrance in yellow and purple letters. Isabella paid 2 halfpennies to a surly and bored-looking woman at the entrance and held aside the canvas door for me. It was warm inside the tent. It was also rather dark, and it smelled very strongly of flowers, so strongly that it was a little unpleasant. But there was also another scent hidden within that scent, one I could not place. A red glow was upon Isabella's face, and I believed she was looking at me. That was how it felt, but I could not see clearly. I felt her hand in mine firmly, and I did not know if she needed my hand or if she thought I needed hers. I gradually began to make out the surroundings. Behind us were 3 stuffed owls on a high table. They had lost the typically stern look that owls have, seeming sad, almost fearful, as if locked away inside themselves. Nearby was a pillar with a Renaissance-style marble statue of a young woman standing on it, a cloth wrapped around her hips and bare breasts. But where her mouth should have been, a beak protruded, large and pointed. I could almost feel her as we walked past, as if her gaze were caressing my back. I gripped Isabella's hand more tightly, and she giggled. On the next table were a number of portraits, which were drawn very well. They were unmistakably children, but each had a strange, cunning expression on its face. Heavens above, I whispered. Isabella rubbed her thumb over my palm. Then she pulled me to a table illuminated by 2 candles. There were glass jars of various sizes on the table, filled with cloudy water. In one jar, the water was very brown, in others it was greenish. There was something floating in there. My God! Isabella clasped her hand over her mouth. She took a step back and let go of my hand. That's repulsive. I did not understand what she meant. I leaned forward to study the jar of brown water more closely, and that was when I saw it. A little hand pressed against the side of the jar. I looked more closely, and it was not only a hand. There was a little arm attached to it, a body, a head. All told, it was the size of my own hand, and it was completely whole. The head was comparatively large, eyes closed, bulging. Oh, poor child, I whispered. It had lived, even if only inside its mother's belly. It had felt warmth, it had dreamt, it had been made, fed, had grown. It was going to live. But something happened, or more likely nothing happened. They did not want her mother to hold her, but her mother screamed. She screamed so loudly until they let her. And she lay there on the bed, in a tangle of red sheets, with pain that would never leave her. And they took her and carried her away, and she would never, ever see her again, no matter how loudly she screamed, "My baby, my baby, my baby." "Mary, come on." Isabella had taken hold of me. She embraced me and encircled me, my cheeks making hers wet. She wiped us dry, and she kissed me on my dry neck. A fluttering sought its way inside me, swirling wildly in my belly, wanting to be everywhere. And we know that the things that happened to them, we were very important to them. It seemed about right that maybe something like that happened. And it surely did seem right for my story.
Isabella breaks people's heart.
Yeah, she does.
It's a very good thing that we do have a heart romance, so that would make sense why it's such a part of such a formative experience.
Yes.
So one narrative, the book is written over 2 narratives, and you have this journal entries from 1812. The other narrative is in Lake Geneva, the Villa Diodati, and a little bit later, let's talk about that. So,
Yeah, it's 4 years later, and what I heard from readers and what I did experience when writing, Mary had grown up a lot. She's almost a different person, but you can still see the young Mary inside her. But she experienced a lot in those 4 years. It's 1816. She is at Lake Geneva with her soon-to-be husband, and they already have had 2 children together. One of them died when she was 17. I think that's a lot to take when you're only just
she's not yet 20.
No, really. Yeah. So I think she was really an adult at that time, more than I think anyone living now and being 18 or 19 could ever be. She was very independent also. Yeah.
And this experience of losing a child, which was a cot death the year before, and she has this other baby, she's absolutely strung out really about the second child and keeping the second child safe.
Yes.
This is her life's mission.
Yes.
Much more than writing, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. She really wanted to write, but before Lord Byron proposed the contest, she wasn't really working on something like that.
She had a book though, hadn't she?
Yes. Yes, a 6-week history of it's a very long title. It's a 6 weeks history of 6 weeks tour around, I think, France, Italy, and parts of Germany.
So
Something
it's
like
like
that.
a travelogue.
Yes,
It's
yes,
a travelogue.
yeah.
Which is very popular in 1960.
It was, yes. I think mostly because people didn't get to go anywhere, so he just wanted to write about people who got anywhere. And she was very young when she did that tour with Percy and with Claire, her stepsister. They went to three of them, and she was pregnant then for the first time. So they traveled for about 6 weeks through Europe, and Percy actually asked his wife, he was still married then, to a woman named Harriet, and he had 2 children with her. She lived in London, and he asked her if she wanted to come along. But
This is wild to the modern sensibility.
Really weird, yes. Well, Percy was really a free love endorser, and I think that Mary understood that in a sense, and his wife didn't. And yeah, later she drowned herself. And it's so weird. I don't really understand how Percy did not bother taking care of those children.
Oh,
Because he didn't love the children
Harriet's
with
children.
Mary. Yeah.
Harriet's children.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Well, there were also his children, and even after she drowned herself, I don't know what happened to those children, and he never talks about them in his diaries or his letters. They just
These are dodgy older guys then. There's a sense of, I suppose, Byron and Shelley, Jean Polidori are maybe in their 30s? Late 20s?
Yeah, well, I think that Percy Shelley was about 24, I think. Yeah, that was just, that was, I think, but Claire was very different from her. She was less serious, I think.
She was
More fun. I don't know if she did. I know that she did not partake in the competition that Lord Byron had proposed. She really enjoyed the company of all those I think famous people, and she really loved to talk with them, to know a lot of people, to socialize. And I think that sometimes it irritated Mary a lot.
Mary, of course, is a young mother. She has this huge responsibility.
Yes.
So this seems like very given to her.
Right. Yes, and a man who she already calls her husband, and he's very rambunctious with her stepsister, so that's better hurt. Even though on paper you believe in free love. Let me check. It was published in Holland 2 years ago, so I started writing it 4 years ago, so it had been dormant for a long time.
Is that, there's something about the Gothic imagination, isn't it? It needs to sit with you. Because, I mean, Mary's the biggest, arguably the biggest Gothic writer in the world. It's one of the most important Gothic texts, and the book itself is very Gothic. So let's have a little chat maybe around what creates a Gothic story. What for you is the genre about?
I really think it has to do with atmosphere, and there are tiny things that make sort of Gothic atmosphere, like everything that you can see or hear or smell, or all the senses are very important in all kinds of writing, of course, but maybe even more so in Gothic fiction, because you really want the reader to be there to experience the Gothic atmosphere.
And the uncertainty.
Yes.
I think there's a certain amount of uncertainty in the genre which you have. You nailed that through. You're often not quite sure what Mary is doing and what she's imagining. There is a sort of, there is not a defined line between where her imagination starts and where it ends.
Yes, yes, it's just like I don't know. There's been drawn like a curtain or a veil somewhere between reality and imagination, and as a reader you don't know where one will stop and the other one will go on. I think it must have something to do with that, but it's very difficult to pinpoint. I can imagine that, well, if you talk about Gothic, it's you easily think about something that's happened a long time ago in a book, like that. It must have been something historical, or it must be not very contemporary. But I think it's, well, I think it could be, but it's well, it has to do with how you define it.
Yeah, and the imagination, it's a great deal to do with imagination, and then working with the reader's imaginations, you're playing inside their imagination.
Yeah. Yes.
So are you stuck on doing historicals now? Do you love historical fiction?
Well, I do, and I was wondering a few years ago already what my next book was going to be about, and if it was going to be a historical novel again. And some part of me really wanted that, because I also enjoyed the tangibleness of writing something historical, because you always have the thing that's actually happened, and you can write around that. So it's like something to cling on to. But my next novel will not be a historical novel per se. It will be set in 1966, so it is of course historical, but it's not about a real figure from history. So I have a little bit less research to do.
What is it called? Just so.
Oh, it's the working title is The Enchantment of Lucy Applewhite.
And Lucy Applewhite is in 1966.
Yes, in New York in 1966. She's living with her mother in the Dakota building, the one from Rosemary's Baby. I don't know if you have read that or seen the movie. It's brilliant. And that was actually the first inspiration for the book, and it's very good.
You wanted to set something at the Dakota?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it's really it's settled in place as well as time.
Yes, very much so. And
is it Gothic?
Well,
it
might be. I'm halfway there now, so I can't really say what it's going to be exactly, but there are certainly Gothic elements to it. Yes,
because it's quite a Gothic building.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I chose it for that reason.
You're into it now. So, this is your first book that's been translated into English. Did you speak to the translator much? How was the translation process for you?
We emailed back and forth, and at all, I think, like 10 different versions of the same manuscript, and then you see in the manuscript all kinds of I don't know how you call it, little pieces of writing from the editor, like I think this has got to go, or I think this people won't understand, or and then the editor and then the translator says something, and she says, well, I think that maybe we can translate it as this and this. What do you think, Anne? And then I will answer them.
Yeah. So you really have a hand in this, because I mean, your English is so wonderful.
Thanks. I got to decide some things, but of course it's mainly a publisher's thing. And just really wanted to let them do their thing and let Laura do her thing because she's such a wonderful translator. So if we slightly disagreed on a point, and I would just say, well, you do what you think is best. And she's also from Scotland, so that was very convenient in
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because there's a good deal of folklore, and maybe we should talk about that. When Mary is in Dublin, she not only goes to this fair, but she also experiences some of our folklore tales, and these make their way into the book, and are obviously part of what's working in her imagination when she is writing Frankenstein. So let's talk about that for a bit. When we found those stories and what drew you to those particular stories and tales.
Yeah, well, I think that Scottish folklore is very well known. Well, not the stories per se, but that's in Scotland. You guys, you've got the folklore. It's
a lot of ghosts. You do have ghosts.
Yeah. So I think that it has to be in the book a lot, and especially because Mary was really fond of all kinds of those stories, and I could imagine that Isabella was also, and of course knew a lot about the Scottish folklore since she has been brought up here. And I could imagine that it would tell a great story about how their relationship evolved. If they both really loved all kinds of. Isabella follows her, and Mary describes to her what she sees, and Isabella sees it also, or as a reader, you don't know. Yes, and I think that's it says something about their relationship together, and it's something that maybe in the years after that, before she goes to Geneva, she almost has forgotten about until the moment she feels she needs to write a scary story, and she is somehow propelled back in time and learns again what she has experienced.
So you chat for ages. Does anyone in the audience? Oh, look, you're all exhausted. Does anyone in the audience do the experimentation with electricity and what creates life and medical faculties around, particularly in Glasgow, of course, but there is, of course, the university also in Dundee. So, did you have a look at that at all, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, a bit, certainly, and I know that in Italy they were also very busy with that, and I know that the friends in Geneva were talking about that as well a lot. It was kind of a new and exciting thing. I know that the scientists were experimenting on deceased prisoners, just to check if they could, well, I don't know, I don't think that scientists thought they could bring them back to life, but they were trying to figure out how electricity worked on the human brain and human muscles, and they did those experiments on deceased humans. They also did it on frogs or anything, and of course when you connect it right, I wouldn't know how to do that, but they did. The muscles start, sorry?
And John Polidori is a doctor, so
yes.
John Polidori at the villa on Geneva is now a doctor.
Yes.
Science doctor.
Yeah, so he knew about all those experiments that was going on. And if you connect the electricity human bodies, they ran away and shrieking and were very, very afraid that
mixture of, I suppose, the folklore stories, the darkness, this weird somewhere. A lot of drugs, let's face it. They were doing
Also,
a lot of
yeah.
drugs, alcohol and laudanum and so forth. And the scientific practices of the day that coalesced in those.
Yes, yes.
It's such an atmospheric novel. I really felt I was kind of at the Villa Diodati, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope that we're all going to join me in thanking Anne coming along tonight to talk about her wonderful book. There are copies for sale downstairs. If you are just shy and you'd like to ask some questions, we're hanging about, so please come and chat. But in the meantime, just put your hand.
Everybody does, but I haven't read the book until I discovered the person of Mary Shelley, and she intrigued me quite a bit. I was at the museum in Shelley in Rome, and it's a tiny museum and it's dedicated to romantic poets. And John Keats actually lived there for a while, and there I read about the competition they had. She was in Geneva together with her soon-to-be husband, Percy Shelley, his and they were visiting John Polidori and the great Lord Byron. And it was the year 1816, and it is also called the year without a summer, because the year before that, a big volcanic eruption somewhere in Indonesia had clouded up the skies above Europe. So all kinds of ash clouds, thunder and lightning and rain made the summer really dreary. So they were cooped up inside all day long with candles and near a fireplace. I think it's kind of cozy.
You can relate to this in Scotland.
Right. And imagine that. But of course there was no electrical lighting, so I think it must have been kind of a spooky atmosphere. And those stories were really popular in those days. It was really coming up. And they read each other those stories. They drank a lot of wine. They used a lot of laudanum. So it was kind of an atmosphere there. And one night, Lord Byron proposed that they would all write a story, a ghost story, and the one who would write the most scary one would be the contest. That's not a fire. And well, I think it's safe to say that Mary won. But I didn't know about the I didn't know about the contest, until I went to that museum. That's about, I think about 8 years ago. And I just thought it's such a marvelous story. Someone should write something about that. And I thought that person should have been me. But, of course, a lot of people have written about that, about those evenings in Geneva, and there are movies made about it. So it was important for me to add something new, and I really wanted to write about it, and to write about her, but only if I could make it my own story, and if I could make it intriguing enough, and to add something new to the already existing cultural heritage of that story.
So what did you come up with? Came up with Mary.
Yes, yeah. I thought that the best approach was to read a lot. Yes. That's always the best approach for everything. But I really wanted to read her letters and her journal entries. And also I read a few biographies.
Are there lots of source materials? Are there a lot of letters and journals that she left behind?
Yes, a lot. I didn't read all of them because I really knew I wanted to write about a young Mary Shelley. So all the material that's from 1820 and up, I just browsed. Yes, well, there's a lot, there's a big element in that, because we don't know very much about her trip to Dundee.
There's a large poster that says Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein in Dundee, and I was tempted to graffiti because it's totally not true. She didn't. So what did she do when she was in Dundee?
Well, we actually don't know very much about what she did in Dundee. Of course, people have written about her in their letters. Some of the things we still can look up, but her journal entries of that time have gotten lost, and that's a really interesting thing, I think, and just a gift for any writer, because then I had to fill in the blanks. And I read in a little preface of Frankenstein that she wrote about her travels to Dundee, and that her staying here was the most important part of her creative development, her imagination. And so I thought, well, if we don't know what happened in Dundee, but it was so important that she had to mention it in her preface. It must have been something.
So we know that she stayed in Dundee with the Astor family?
Yes.
So we know that about her?
Yes.
And how long did she stay?
Yeah, oh, thanks.
Very good, good talk, you know.
Great. Who can I make it out
Could you make it out to my sister Lisa, please?
Lisa.
Yeah, thanks.
Lisa?
Yes, great, thanks.
Okay, perfect. It's today is the 30th.